The time has come for us to count down the top 28 rides and attractions at Walt Disney World Resort. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Adventures with Parker. Today is the day when we are going to wrap up our trilogy where we have been ranking every single ride and attraction at Walt Disney World. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, be sure to check them out. I'll leave some links up here and probably down in the description too. They should be easy for you to find. But you know what? We're just gonna get right into it and bring it on home. But yeah, without any further ado, for the very last time, let the Disney Countdown Adventures begin! Starting off with number 28, we have Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Now, obviously, I haven't been able to experience this ride for myself yet, but from what I hear, it's essentially the next evolution of Mission Space. You're driving in the Millennium Falcon, and you have to do all these different things, and you go on a mission, and just any ride that has an interactive component just adds that extra level of immersion and storytelling that is just so awesome to see in the parks. Also, the thing with this attraction compared to Mission Space is that what you are doing on this ride will actually make a difference in your experience. Like, your actions actually have consequences, and that just puts this attraction above and beyond. And really, like, every time you go on, your experience is going to be different, and that just seems really cool to me. And yeah, that's just one ride that I'm really looking forward to the next time I visit. At number 27, we have Carousel of Progress. This attraction is something that's just really near and dear to me. I love the message that it tells, that message of hope and innovation and just making the future brighter and better. These are some ideals that Walt really stood for, and I just love that we still have this attraction in the Magic Kingdom. There's one in Disneyland as well, but that got taken out years ago, so it's still good that we at least have one version that's still living and still going on. Now, I will say that I think that the ending scene is in desperate need of an update. Technology has come so far since that ride was updated last, and so I'd love to see something that just talks about newer technologies. But I mean, all of the other scenes are just perfect. I love the characters, and I love kind of the little quips and quirks that it talks about, so I really do hope that this ride stays around for a long time. At number 26, we have Soarin' Around the World. Okay, I know this attraction gets a fair amount of heat and condescension from the theme park community, but you know what, I still really like it. I think it's a fun ride, and it's just cool. And I do like the Around the World update in the sense that I think it fits better with Epcot, but I do still prefer the Soarin' over California version just on an objective level. But it's still fun, and I mean the music is great too. I think that's something that really characterizes this attraction. Like, that score is just so iconic and so recognizable and just majestic, which really fits the feel of this ride. A point of criticism that I have, well, the CGI kind of looks cheesy in some cases. Again, that's kind of why I prefer the over California version. It didn't really have those CGI moments, but it's still fine. We'll let it slide. At number 25, we have Kilimanjaro Safaris. This attraction is just quintessential Animal Kingdom. It was an opening day attraction. I love how this ride combines entertainment with education. Of course, like, it's cool to see the animals, but then like your guide who's on your safari truck with you will just spit a bunch of cool facts at you, and you really learn a lot about the animals that you're looking at. I also like the fact that in recent years they've kept the safari open into the night, so you can have these nighttime experiences, and it just really allows you to see these animals when they're more active, which is always really cool. Another thing I really love about this attraction is that the habitats you're going through are very open, and they just make you feel like you're actually in Africa, and that's good from an entertainment perspective, but also it's good for the animals. Like, it's not like they're in this cramped little zoo. One thing I am a little disappointed in when it comes to this attraction is that when I first went on it way back in 2007, there was more of a storyline with it. There was the story of you had to save this baby elephant from poachers, and it opened your eyes to this real world problem of poaching. But even without that whole storyline, it's still a really good ride and definitely a must do when you go to Animal Kingdom. At number 24, we have Muppet Vision 3D. What can I say about this? It is just so much fun. Oh my goodness, this is a hilarious and very fun show. And I mean, even though it's so old, like it's not like this HD 3D movie with all the latest technology, it just has this charm and this timelessness, which makes sense because I feel like that's also something that applies to the Muppet franchise in general. Like they're just timeless and so classic. And yeah, this attraction it covers everything that I think the Muppets represent. Plus, fun fact, this was the very last film that Jim Henson had a role in directing and producing. I mean, I think it opened a year after his death, but he still had like a major hand in it, so it's very special for that reason. Coming in at number 23, we have the Tomorrowland Transit Authority PeopleMover. I just love the PeopleMover so much. It's probably my all-time favorite form of transportation in Disney World. Not that it really takes you from one spot to another, but it does give you this really nice tour over Tomorrowland. And plus, you get this point where you go to this building where you can see a model of the original vision of Epcot. So that being the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, originally envisioned by Walt. And oh, I just geek out every time I see it. I just wish sometimes that the ride would just break down in front of that model so I can just spend time just taking it all in. Especially when you consider that the PeopleMover was going to be one of the public transit options available within the cities. So it's all connected and it's just really cool. And on top of that, the attraction is just iconic and it's classic. And yeah, what more can I say? At number 22, we have Toy Story Midway Mania. This is a really fun attraction, and I just love the interactivity that goes along with it. Like, there's all of these different games that you can play, and you can try to beat your high score every time. Plus, I really like the queue for it. You're kind of in Andy's bedroom, so you have that feeling like you have been shrunk down to the size of a toy. And yeah, it's just cute and fun. There's nothing overly like super impressive about it, but I mean, as you probably come to find out by this point, that doesn't mean it's a bad ride. It's just super fun, and that's why I put it where it is. At number 21, we have Peter Pan's Flight. Now, I actually haven't been on this ride myself, but I have seen tons of POVs of it, and it's a cute ride. I think it's good, and I think it just has that classic Fantasyland dark ride energy that's just timeless and wonderful, but I don't think the lines that it gets is warranted. Like, why is it always like a 1 to 2 hour wait? I just don't think it makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's a great ride, but I don't think it's worth waiting that long for. Plus, I mean, let's be honest, there's a couple scenes that could use some updating. You know the ones that I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could ride it because other than the problematic scenes, it really is a wonderful ride. I just don't think it's all that cracked up to the hype that it gets. But still worthy of being in the top 28, of course. At number 20, we have the Rockin' Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. Rockin' Roller Coaster is arguably one of the most thrilling rides at Walt Disney World. It is the only roller coaster on property to feature inversions, so it's great in that sense, but I do have some mixed feelings about it. I mean, the roller coaster itself, it's not the best roller coaster out there, I mean, by a long shot, and even with the theming that it has, like, most of it is just like weird black lights and stuff like that, so it's not super well themed. But at the end of the day, I always have a good time on it. It's one of those rides that I always prioritize when I go to Hollywood Studios. And I think because it's basically the only high thrill, high intensity coaster at Disney, it can work its way up in the rankings that way. I mean, at least in my books, like I love story and I love immersion, but I also love thrill. And this way I can kind of get a taste of it. At numero 19, we have the Gran Fiesta Tour starring the three Caballeros. I love this ride. It is short, for sure. I will criticize that. And yes, the animatronics always go down for some reason, but it is still really fun. Originally, this ride was called the Rio del Tiempo, which basically told about the history of Mexico. But then they converted it to the Gran Fiesta Tour, so they added in the three Caballeros. And I mean, it still does a good job of representing the Mexican people and the Mexican culture, but then they kind of lay over this IP on it, but it does it in a way that I think is effective. And I mean, the song is so catchy too. The three Caballeros, the three Caballeros, they say we are birds of a feather. It's so good. That said, if Disney turned around tomorrow and said, yeah, we're gonna close this and make it a Coco ride, I think that would be an excellent fit and I would be all for that. But I mean, even as it stands now, it's good. I love it. Blasting off at number 18, we have Space Mountain. This is another ride that I kind of have a bit of a mixed feel on, but I still obviously feel like it's a top tier ride. The roller coaster itself is very basic. Like if you took the track and just put it outside, it would be a boardwalk coaster at best, but it is still just a classic. And I mean, maybe I'm just going off of nostalgia here, but it is fun and it's an attraction I always try to get on when I go to Disney. And it does feel like you're going faster than you really are just because of the fact that you're going through the dark and going through all of these twinkling lights and stars. Yeah, I think it's just the classicness and the iconicness that really just puts the ride where it is for me. At the end of the day, what are theme parks for but to be fun? This ride does just that. At number 17, we have Living with the Land. This ride is fun if you like plants. But no, let's honestly like break it down. You start off and it kind of goes through this dark ride section with animatronics. And it kind of talks about our relationship to the land and things like farming, and also kind of talks about things like climate change. So it has this real educational aspect to it. And then of course you have that second half where you go through the greenhouses and you get to see all of these vegetables and all of these plants being grown using like cutting edge agricultural techniques like hydroponics, which is just something that is just really being experimented on right now. But yeah, don't let this ride fool you. I mean, I guess the concept might sound boring, but it's really enjoyable, and I think a lot of guests can get a lot out of riding it. So yeah, when it comes to this attraction, I'm living with the land. At number 16 is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I've yet to make a full assessment of this ride. I've been trying to avoid POVs and just try to avoid as many spoilers as I can. I'm really making this ranking based on what other people have said about it, and I hear it's good. I mean, it kind of uses some different technology, and it has that 2.5D, whatever that actually means. Plus, I mean, it's the first ride to actually focus on Mickey and Minnie, which I think is long overdue. So I think it's great for that. That said, I miss the Great Movie Ride so much. That ride was my all-time favorite ride in Hollywood Studios. So the fact that this ride replaced it is a bit of a sore spot for me. Who knows? I am reserving full judgment, of course, until I actually get to ride it myself. And I hear it's still a top tier ride. So this is just where we're gonna put it for now. At number 15 is Frozen Ever After. From one Epcot boat ride to another, Frozen Ever After actually really surprised me as a ride. I was a huge fan of Maelstrom, the ride that this ride replaced. Admittedly, I was really disappointed when I found out that they were going to replace it with a Frozen ride. But turns out it was a good move. I think that this ride is super well done. Animatronics are really impressive. Even going off of the track layout, like it has that drop in there. And I mean, it's not like a high thrill drop, but it's a significant drop. And let's see, have that backwards portion. Now, as you guys know, I am a big fan of Frozen, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I think anyone can really enjoy this ride, or at the very least, appreciate it. It's a really fun boat ride and arguably one of the best on property. At number 14 is Star Tours The Adventures Continue. Long before Galaxy's Edge, Hollywood Studios had this ride, I mean, it's still there today, called Star Tours. I am not like a huge fan of Star Wars. I do like it, and I've seen like all of the main movies and The Mandalorian, of course. But even before I considered myself a fan, I really enjoyed this ride. Like, it is just so fun and adventurous. Plus, it kind of has this cool purpose today where Galaxy's Edge kind of represents like the new era of Star Wars, whereas this ride kind of represents everything. Like, you have Darth Vader and all of those like more original characters. And on top of that, I like how every ride is a little bit different. They kind of mix up the sequences and mix up the planets that you visit. Every ride is different, and I love that about attractions. At number 13, we have Spaceship Earth. If you could read that title card, thank the Phoenicians. This, of course, is a ride in Spaceship Earth, or the Epcot ball, to those of you who might be uncultured. And it just is a perfect ride for Epcot. It talks about the history of communication. I just really love this ride, and it just has so many iconic and memorable moments, of course. I mean, I already quoted like the famous Phoenicians line, but then you have like the burning Rome scene and the smells of that scene. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it is just the perfect ride for Epcot. I'm curious to see how they're going to update it, if that update is still going through. But yeah, if you can only do a handful of attractions when you go to Epcot, this ride it has to be one of them. Next up, at number 12, is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. This ride is really cool. It's, I guess, kind of like a less intense, more family version of like a mine train coaster, and it has all of those mine train coaster elements. But then there's that added dynamic of having those swinging cars, which is super unique. Like, there's no other coaster in the world, with the exception of the other Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in Shanghai, that uses these kinds of trains. So it is super unique among coasters. And I think overall, this is a system that could have a variety of applications, so I'm really surprised no other parks have picked up on this. Of course, you have the show scene where you actually go into the mines with the dwarves, and those animatronics are super cool. To have a fully embellished show scene like that on a roller coaster is pretty special. And again, you have another show scene at the end with Snow White's cottage, which I believe reuses animatronics from the original Snow White Scary Adventures ride. So it kind of carries on that piece of history with it. But yeah, it's a great attraction overall. Lines are a little long, but maybe it's justified for this. Maybe not, I don't know. Kind of depends on your opinion. My opinion, it's good. Vroom vroom, it's number 11, and we have Test Track. Fun fact, Test Track is Walt Disney World's fastest attraction. Basically, the whole premise is that you are, there's been two versions, but the current premise is that you are designing a car, which you then test on this sim track, and you basically go through all these different tests, and you kind of test out this car that you made. Like, there's different stats that appear. And this attraction is cool because it involves a thrill component with that like speed section outside, with some more traditional dark ride components with all the inside sections. But then there's also a bit of an educational aspect because you're kind of learning about the future of cars. You also kind of learn about how cars work. Not so much now. The original version was more about that whole testing phase. Now it's a little bit different, but still the same. Yeah. Overall, this is a really fun ride. I do prefer the original version, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know, it just had a little more charm to it, I guess. But the new version is still okay. It's still very enjoyable. And of course, that outdoor scene is really fun because you get to go fast. Vroom, vroom. Here it is, friends. We are now entering the top 10 attractions at Walt Disney World. And coming in at number 10 is Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is just a classic Disney attraction. Of course, it was an opening day attraction at Magic Kingdom as well as over at Disneyland, so it's had a long history within the Disney parks. It's fun because of course you get some animatronic moments, but then you have the skipper with you who makes puns left and right, which I love puns and like dad jokes and all that kind of stuff, so this ride is right up my alley. I just have a really good time with this attraction, even if some of the puns are groaners. It's a fun ride, and just the classicness of it all is just, it takes you back, but at the same time, it's very timeless. Well, for the most part, there are a few problematic scenes which they are fixing. And speaking of that, I am really excited for the new updates that they're bringing to this ride, because they're going to be incorporating the whole sea, you know, the Societies of Explorers and Adventurers storyline into this ride, and I just love any attractions that have to do with the whole sea story. So yeah, I am just so looking forward to these updates, and it's going to make an already great attraction even better. At number 9 is DINOSAUR. I just love this ride so much. First of all, you have this really awesome like queue and pre-show experience. The queue is supposed to be like this museum, like as part of the Dino Institute. And then when you go into the pre-show, you have, of course, the very iconic Dr. Seeker and Dr. Marsh. These characters are just so fun. I mean, especially Dr. Seeker, like he just has this very quirky quality to him that I just love. Then of course, you board your time rover and you set off on your prehistoric adventure. And yeah, you're trying to search for this iguanodon to bring back. And then of course you have your run-ins with the Carnotaurus, which actually really scared me as a child. The first time I went on it, like there's this big Carnotaurus just roaring in front of you. And then my grandma's like, Parker, look! And then I'm like, Grandma, no! Like I like grabbed her arm and like I thought this thing was gonna like chomp her arm off. Like I was so concerned for her like arms attachment. So that's fun. And then of course like the vehicle itself, like I love like the range of movement that it has, and it just kind of thrusts this ride into that thrilling dark ride category. Is this ride perfect? No, it could use some updates for sure, especially in like the range of movement that the animatronics have. So some fresher, newer animatronics would be a welcome addition. At number 8, we have Splash Mountain. Hey, it's right here on my shirt, cool. Splash Mountain is a really fun log flume, and I would say it is the best in the entire world. Yeah, it's a bold statement, but it is a statement I am willing to make. It just has this really fun atmosphere with all of its little characters, and the end scene is my favorite, like with the riverboat, and you have the gators, and you have like the chicken. The flume itself is also full of drops, like I think there's 4 drops in total. And of course that big drop is just super fun and super soaking as well. That said, for all these good things that I've said about this ride, it's extremely problematic, unfortunately, because the characters that the ride uses, like Brer Rabbit, Brer Bear, and Brer Fox, are from a movie called Song of the South, which is incredibly racist. Yeah, the fact that that movie is this ride's source material, it's not good. But the good news is that Disney has announced that this ride will be transformed into a Princess and the Frog themed ride, but I am just so excited for this update, because again, you're gonna have all of those things that make this ride wonderful, and then get rid of the problematic part and add in Princess and the Frog. Let's be real, like Princess Tiana deserves a ride. It is an abomination that she doesn't have one yet. So I'm glad that they're making these changes. And who knows, maybe by the time that it opens, Splash Mountain will be a little higher in my rankings. At number 7 is Expedition Everest. First of all, let's talk about the queue experience. There are a whole bunch of different like artifacts and relics, all about like the Himalayas and all about the Yeti and the legend of the Yeti. So it's kind of like this collector's museum. So there's tons to look at when you're in the queue. Honestly, the queue could be an attraction all on its own. And then, of course, your expedition begins, and it starts off with just kind of like slower, meandering, and then you climb up the mountain, and everyone knows the rest. You have the forwards and backwards sections, and then you come face to face with the Yeti, and you're like diving all around the mountain, and then you have the Disco Yeti! Which, I mean, is in desperate need of help. Like, Disney, please fix this animatronic, like, yesterday. But yeah, it is a fun roller coaster. I always do it like multiple times when I visit Animal Kingdom. And yeah, I just love it so, so much. Avast me hearties, at number 6 is Pirates of the Caribbean. This swashbuckling adventure is just iconic and is basically synonymous with Disney. It is such a fun ride. There are tons of animatronics all throughout. I think this was one of the first animatronic heavy attractions at Disney. It is just so well done and so timeless as well. The ride is just full of secrets and history. But yeah, I don't think I have any criticisms of this ride except that the Disneyland version is better because it's longer and it has the restaurant attached to it. Other than that, I mean, there's really not much that you can complain about. Number 5 is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This roller coaster is just so much fun. And I mean, even though it's not the biggest or the fastest out there, it just has this charm and this real character to it. Of course, you have all the animatronics in it, like the goat and with the dynamite and all that. And you have like the ending where you go through the T-Rex skeleton. And then there's like the village that's around it. There's just a lot that goes into this attraction. Like, there's so much to look at, and it's fun. Like, it has a bit of a thrill factor to it, but it's not so overwhelming that like it'll scare off the kiddos. You know, like, it's fun for the entire family. And you know what, roller coasters don't have to be like the biggest or the best or the fastest or any of that stuff all the time. Sometimes they can just be fun and just be in an immersive setting, and that's exactly what Big Thunder Mountain does. I am just a huge fan of it, and yeah. Coming in at number 4 is Flight of Passage. Obviously, I've not been on this ride myself, and I've been trying to avoid POVs as best as I can. But yeah, when it opened, I heard that this was the best ride on Walt Disney World property, and I don't quite believe that because obviously it's number 4 and not number 1. But I still think it is a great ride. Again, just from things that I've heard about it. I mean, it makes sense because it uses like this state-of-the-art cutting-edge technology, and it just kind of throws you into that world of Pandora. And of course, like the actual vehicle that you're on, like you can feel the breathing. And I'm just so curious to actually like experience what that feels like because that is just so mind-blowing. This ride is just next level on all the levels. So yeah, I am super excited to ride this when I can. But in the meantime, we still have 3 more rides to discuss. Kicking off our top 3 is Tower of Terror. Okay, this ride is just...
Ah! Didn't get that. Could you try again?
I wasn't talking to you, Siri. Whew, that startled me. That was a Twilight Zone moment right there. Okay, Tower of Terror just does everything right. It is immersive, it has a very interesting story that goes along with it, it is suspenseful, it is mysterious, it is thrilling and a run out of hands, but it's just everything you could possibly want from an attraction. I just love all the spookiness of it, I love all the details that go into this attraction, and I mean the queue as well. There's a lot of like Twilight Zone Easter eggs in there. And the ride is just so much fun, and it's one of the few like major like intense thrill rides on Disney properties, so it just does everything right. I no complaints. Number 2 is the Haunted Mansion. This ride will just always have such an important place in my heart. The Haunted Mansion is the very first Disney ride I have ever experienced, so there's a lot of nostalgia that goes along with that. But on top of that, this ride just does everything right. Again, it's just chock full of animatronics and special effects just everywhere you go. It has this really chilling storyline, and I mean the other cool thing is that the storyline of this ride really isn't like super clear. Like you gotta do some deep dives to fully understand the story that this ride is trying to tell. And I mean, there's not even just one. There are like a bunch of different storylines that you can follow within this ride. Like it is just so fully developed. Like the universe of this ride is just so well thought out. And I just love just immersing myself into that every time I ride it. There's a reason why it's my favorite Disney ride that I have ever been on. Now, we have talked about 83 attractions so far, but there's always room for one more. If you haven't guessed it already, coming in at first place as the best ride at Walt Disney World is Rise of the Resistance. I was hesitant to put this ride in first place because, again, obviously haven't been on it, and I've been trying to avoid POVs, but I did get a couple spoilers. I do kind of know how the ride system works, but just from everything I do know about this ride, it does everything right and then some. You have a storyline that just puts you in the center of the action. It has this really elaborate queue and like setup. You have all these really like high-tech animatronics, and like a lot of them at that. And it combines a bunch of different ride systems, and it has this really thrilling moment on it. Yeah, that was the part that was spoiled for me. But yeah, it's not just a regular slow-moving dark ride. It uses the Force. See what I did there? I am just so excited to ride this when I can finally get to Disney again. And like I said, like I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fan, but I think that anyone would be able to enjoy this ride just because of how everything it is. And I mean, like everyone I've talked to says that this is more or less like the best Disney ride ever, so I'm gonna believe them. And yeah, that is why I'm putting Rise of the Resistance at number 1. And I will confirm at a yet to be determined date whether that was the right decision or not. Anyways, woo, that was a lot, but we have made it through, and we have officially ranked all 84 rides and attractions at Walt Disney World. What do you think about my rankings? Comment down below and let me know. I would love to see how your opinions might differ from mine, and where you think I got things spot on, and maybe where you think I'm like way off base. After I go to Disney again, I will definitely like redo this video and kind of update my opinions. But yeah, that's kind of where we stand now. Thank you so much for joining me, especially if you watched all 3 videos. Like, you are a trooper. Like, I did not expect this to be like an hour and a half's worth of content. Like, that is crazy. But yeah, thank you for sticking through it with me. Anyways, if you would like to see more theme park, travel, local, and outdoor adventure related content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification icon, and be sure to follow me on social media at ADBParker. That does it for me, and always remember that the adventures are calling. See ya!